Welcome, welcome, welcome to a special free training on unlocking French literacy, the four-step method to elevate your child's French reading and confidence. I could not be more thrilled that you decided to spend a little time and get some more information and hopefully a lot of insight in today's session. So, this is about unlocking French literacy, even if you don't speak French at home, even if you feel like you can't assist with French homework, and even if you occasionally doubt the decision to choose French immersion for your child. Now, who is this training for? So, this training is for parents or guardians of French immersion students who want their child to master reading comprehension and gain higher confidence in French. It's also for the parents who really value their child's education and want them to build a bright future and career potentially by becoming proficient in a second language. And finally, it's for parents who are looking for a clear and actionable plan to help their child stay motivated and also enjoy learning French. Because what is the point of doing something, especially for our kids, if they're not enjoying it? Okay. And seeing some proven strategies that would support that. Now, who is this training not for? So, if this is you, all right, this training is not for the parents who are looking for a quick fix to language learning without a commitment or ongoing practice and engagement. It's also not for the parents who are absolutely against new teaching methods and strategies, quite preferably think that traditional approaches of language learning are where they're more aligned. And finally, it's not for the parents who are not willing to invest time or resources in supporting your child's language development outside of the school curriculum. So if you did find yourself in this place and this here is you, you are welcome to hit that X button. But for those who are still here, my promise to you is this: I want to deliver as much value to you as possible. Okay. I'm going to give some real life examples, and I'm also going to provide some actionable steps. I want to make sure this is really valuable time spent for you. Okay. In return, here's what I ask that you close all the tabs on your computer. You know how that gets, or your laptop, to avoid distractions, as well as your mobile phone. Make sure it's on silent so you can really put your time and your attention on this specific training. And I ask you to invest the time to really discover how your child can move beyond struggling with vocab, feeling unsure about exercises that involve reading, and of course, lacking the confidence in speaking French. So I do encourage you take some notes as we're going, and I invite you to also keep some questions or see how what I am sharing relates to your specific scenario. Okay, so here's what you're going to learn today. You're going to learn the top three mistakes that keep French immersion students stuck. What to do instead that's going to get your child to master reading comprehension. I'm also going to go through and enlighten you a little bit to some reasons as to why your child perhaps is not reading fluently. And then I'm going to share my step by step framework on how your child can accelerate their learning curve in French immersion. Oh, I love a treat. I love to give treats. So if you stay until the end, there is a special, exciting bonus for you. It's going to be available at the end of this session. So stay tuned and there will be a treat in store. Now, here is where I am today. And I always love to show the journey because French learning itself is a journey. And I want to make that clear. And I want to also share my personal experience. So I myself, I am a former French immersion student. I did start French immersion in senior kindergarten, went through high school, and then did one of my degrees in French. So right now it makes 17 years that I have been tutoring French to students across the globe. Okay. We've helped hundreds of students across Canada, specifically in the French immersion program, achieve reading comprehension proficiency. I've also developed a unique French reading method that works. That's what I'm going to be sharing a lot of today. And finally, I sit in a place right now where I am so aware and so clear that confidence is a massive piece, a massive ingredient in French learning being successful. And I sit in a place where I am so aware of what confidence and the lack thereof can do for a child, especially when they are on that challenging French learning journey. And it's a really massive discovery. And I do hope that you do see a little bit of insight into why that is in today's session. Now, it always wasn't like this, all right? So, back in the day, students would come to me and to our team, and they were kind of stuck, right? There was a lot of barriers and blockers, and it became very clear the main blocker was with their French reading. Now, this was also students that we were meeting who were lacking fluency. And of course, maybe in the very early years, the expectation is they're still learning, but these were students who were coming to us later on, like higher grades, and not having the fluency that I remember us having when we were growing up in the French program. And of course, it always wasn't like this. We'd have frustrated parents stressed out and really being really open, wondering, hey, is French immersion for my child? Maybe this is not the program for my child or my children. Now, in 1989, my family migrated from a tiny island in the Caribbean called Trinidad and Tobago. And my dad's friend, completely unrelated, I like to not call it so random, but he said, hey, why don't you put the kids in French school? And the rest is history. So I shared that as the beginning of my journey, just to show you that my story is perhaps similar to yours. Perhaps you're newer to the country or you weren't born in the country that you're residing, and your children have an opportunity to learn French and explore that pathway. Just know that I sat in their seat and there is light and hope at the end of the tunnel. So our students came to us having tried everything. They were asking the teacher for extra help, calling classmates to do homework. I know we were encouraged to do that when we were younger. Our parents would say, well, call a friend and ask. Now, in today's age, online learning apps like Duolingo are really popular, and they tried that, exhausted that. And of course, spending hundreds of dollars with either private tutors or at tutoring centers. Now, it wasn't until I figured out these 4 steps that everything began to change for the students that I work with. And massive, massive results. We've had students from all grades, starting as young as senior kindergarten, who have been in our programs. And the massive differences that parents were seeing was that their children were beginning to dive deeper and now develop really advanced, accelerated skills in comprehension, in their reading, in their verbal, their spoken French, and heading back to school to show a renewed confidence. So it's kind of all working together, right? What you're learning in our program should transfer to doing better in the day-to-day school environment. Now, increased confidence and motivation, another massive success point. As I mentioned before, very often in the French immersion program, there are certain milestones by a certain grade that is expected. Now, when a child could get to the junior high level, grade 7 is that age for a lot of people where, of course, fluency is expected. Of course, you should be comfortable with chit chatting and presenting in French. But sometimes, if there aren't certain key areas addressed from the onset, a grade 7 student can be uncomfortable speaking. They can shut down and refuse to. And at that age, at that grade, you are being evaluated on things like that. You've got to show your teachers that you're able to be confident in the language and be able to communicate without hesitation and without discomfort. So having finished our program, another happy client who was with us, our wonderful student, was able to go through our program and was so much more confident and comfortable. And we're so proud of him for that. Also, enhance vocabulary and pronunciation. So this is a big one. This is a big one because in French, there is a accuracy of language, okay? There's an accuracy of language. There's more advanced vocabulary, which is expected as you move grade to grade. It's not just about being able to do the basics. The basics are kind of the first baby step, but it is important that every year you're adding more colorful language to your French speaking. For a lot of our students, it's about being able to elaborate more effectively, both written and spoken, And that vocabulary piece, and of course, the pronunciation does go hand in hand. This particular student was in grade 5, and he really enjoyed our course and the experience there. And it was more about this child who a parent says was not a huge fan of schooling or extra lessons or anything of that sort, and did find our presentation, our way of packaging and really just promoting French language learning was really effective and was well received from him. So his mom appreciated not him just enjoying French lesson, but that almost changing his mindset towards learning overall. And this is why, guys, I'm so passionate about helping French students who are struggling to read in French. I want them to start reading and understand that, you know, everyone has that little thorn in their French learning journey, but I want them to really get on this plan. I want your kids to be a part of something where they don't have to have the same struggles, where they don't have to have the same hassles and speed bumps that our students have gone through in the past. So, my students in the past, difficulty with reading comprehension, of course, and it's so, so important, lack of confidence and motivation, and limited vocabulary and pronunciation. This was all them until they learned the simple 4 step formula. And that's what I'm about to share with all of you today. Now, you're going to get an exclusive behind the scenes look into what the most successful French immersion students have in common. And this is what separates them from you. My students today, they are thriving. They have improved listening and speaking skills, better academic performance. So, as I mentioned, what happens in our program that translates very positively into their school environment, and finally, enhanced cultural appreciation. Now, let's talk about mistakes. Specifically, the top 3 mistakes that keep French immersion students stuck and why it keeps them stuck. Hope you have your notepads ready. So, firstly, mistake number 1, relying solely on the teacher at school. Now, what does this all mean? So, when you're in a classroom of students, and I know there are different ranges of what class numbers look like, but where I live, 20, 30 students in a class to one teacher is not abnormal. Okay. And this is in the French program. There is limited time, first of all, and attention that can be given to one individual student. And fun fact, there's diverse learning paces. And in a larger group environment, the majority wins, meaning that the teacher does have a certain curriculum, certain items on a checklist to get through by the end of the school year. And not everyone always moves at the same pace, but if they see the majority is understanding, they do have to keep moving forward in their lessons. So, what happens if you continue to just think, oh, you'll figure it out at school? You have a teacher who speaks French, they'll help you figure it out. Well, that's going to cause slower progress in language acquisition. Okay. I always like to illustrate things a little bit visually. So imagine that you're on a train and the train is moving. All right. So the train is picking up passengers along the way. And this is the teacher. She's the conductor. She or he is the conductor. And as they're moving the train along, it's either you get on the train when it's at your stop. And if you're running a few minutes late, if you're not getting that lesson or not quite understanding a concept, you're going to miss the train. And this will cause decreased confidence and motivation because if you're relying on the teacher and the majority around you, or maybe not, seem to understand, or even if they don't, and Madame or Monsieur has moved forward, that's not going to be a motivating thing. There's certain dots that need to be connected. And very often, if you miss the dot before, it's the future lessons aren't going to make as much sense. And obviously, a missed opportunity for enrichment. So when you're looking at language learning, if you're relying solely on the teacher and that progress isn't happening, it is a massive miss in terms of where the enrichment could have come into play. So what happens when you stop making this mistake? Well, you're going to have accelerated language mastery. You're going to have boosted confidence and enthusiasm, and your child is going to have enhanced academic and cultural enrichment. And I mentioned something like cultural enrichment, guys, because French is a feeling language, okay? And French exists across the whole world, okay? It's not just a limited language. It is spoken everywhere across the world. So having a cultural appreciation, being exposed to different ways of speaking French and different French cultures, it does positively reflect and affect your child's language learning. So that exposure, that awareness is also important. Here's Sarah. Sarah's son Liam experienced our program and he was struggling with French. Okay, he lacked confidence. He was in French immersion, and the reading was an issue. Now, after enrolling him in our Prodigy program, in our French Reading Foundations program, there was a remarkable transformation that she noticed, and Liam's reading comprehension improved significantly. So the focus and the attention is what is so key, because what the goal is ultimately is for our kids to retain the information. And that is what this program helped Sarah's son Liam do. So let's talk about mistake number two. Mistake number two is learning French the old school way. And I might push a few buttons here, but that's okay. We're here to keep it real. We're here to be honest. What does that mean? That means that perhaps you or whoever the guardian is has a teacher-centered instruction belief, has the belief that, okay, it's only if my child is sitting with a teacher can there be improvement, okay? Reliance on rote memorization. Finally, limited interaction and engagement. So, what happens if you continue making this mistake? Well, there's going to be a lack of practical language skills. Your child is going to have decreased motivation and engagement. Are we seeing a reoccurring theme? Decreased motivation, lack of confidence, okay? And of course, where there is a lack of confidence and motivation, the speaking abilities are affected, because you're not going to want to try or speak up or even take a chance if there is no confidence, and if your child is slowly checking out, okay, having no motivation. So what's going to happen when you stop making this mistake? When you stop making this mistake, you're going to have a child who is developing mastery of real world communication. It's one thing for your child to be able to, read a book, start to read a book, but it's another level they're unlocking when they're able to have spontaneous real world communication, when they can travel somewhere and speak either on your behalf or theirs, navigate in a French speaking environment without having crutch of, not knowing what certain words mean or not having the fluency that they've practiced their whole years of schooling to do. You're also going to see sparked curiosity and lifelong passion. There's this interesting thing, and I always share this because as a French speaker myself, there is this curiosity and desire to learn more. I've traveled many places and used my French in many places. I don't just mean French speaking countries. I mean, I was in New York last summer and went to the MoMA, the Museum of Modern Art. And I don't know how it happened, but one of the security guards in one of the art sections spoke French. And one of my friends, colleagues who was with me said, "Hey, Elise speaks French." And we had a beautiful exchange in French about just how the day was going and what's in that particular section. And what a beautiful thing, right? No matter where you go, language is a connector. And that's what I want your kids to feel and to see value in. Okay. And finally, empowered confidence and dynamic speaking if you stop making that particular mistake. Now, let's talk about Derek. Derek, who had his daughter Malia. And when she first came to us, Malia was in grade 2 and had a very limited vocabulary. Okay. So, limited vocabulary means that there are basics, but when the teachers at school are looking for a little bit more, Malia was unable to do that. And this was quite a difficult feat because at school, you're evaluated on things like your vocabulary and where you are for your grade level. So this particular program was really effective in providing the extra support that she needed. And her vocabulary improved tremendously. And When vocabulary improves, this gives a child more confidence. They can express themselves better. They feel more comfortable in French environments. And her parents were really grateful for the impact of this program. And finally, mistake number three is thinking French immersion is only beneficial if you, as parents, if you, as a family, speak French at home. Let's talk about why that's a mistake. So, independent language acquisition, okay, resource availability, and community and cultural exposure. That is where we're looking for. So, what does this all mean? Independent language acquisition, resource availability, community, and cultural exposure. So, if you are thinking that you as a family absolutely need to speak French for your child to succeed in the language, that is of major concern because your child is number one going to have missed educational opportunities. Very often, our kids are not further along because perhaps we've passed on knowingly or unknowingly some limiting beliefs. Okay. Perhaps we're saying at home over and over, well, I don't speak French, so I don't know how to help. Or, oh, I don't speak French. I don't speak French. I'm not familiar with the language. So this is missing educational opportunities. Instead of seeking out additional resources or trying to explore some ways to perhaps get you some skills or point you in the right direction, our kids are missing out because parents, we are putting on the barrier right off the bat. It's also unnecessary pressure and stress. And that's on you guys. Okay. Like you're probably beating yourself up at night, staying awake, saying, was this even a good decision? Your child is stressed out. Maybe a report card, triggers your conversation. Perhaps even the teacher or principal who said, hey, is French immersion really what you guys are trying to do? Unnecessary pressure and stress. And finally, limiting your child's adaptability and learning skills. So if we are thinking we have to know French, and that's our belief, that could be coming out in ways that is hindering our children from developing other learning skills. Because French is the main part of their learning experience, us having that mindset and how that's being showcased or how that's being even done in our everyday body language or our responses to certain things involving their schooling, that's limiting your child's adaptability to the program. So, what's going to happen when you stop making this mistake? And that mistake is a way of thinking, right? Now, you're going to give your child, if you stop doing this, broader access to bilingual education. Here, I spoke about seeking out different resources, broader access. Okay, that's what we're looking for your child. Enhanced family engagement. So, changing the conversation rather than I don't speak French, maybe it's how can I best support you? What did you learn at school today? What can you be teaching, mom or dad? Give your child the opportunity to teach you, to share what they're learning, even if they're not perfect. It's about them seeing mom's interest, dad's interest, mommy, daddy, auntie, uncle, grandma, grandpa, anyone's interest in how their schooling is coming along. And finally, strengthen problem solving and adaptability skills. So most, let's say 90%, okay? 90% of students who are enrolled in the French program do not have French speaking parents at home. It's just the reality of it. It's the beauty of it, but also the reality of it, meaning that we're all in this together. So let us cut that conversation if we don't speak French and have that limiting belief and change it to, okay, what resources, what pathways can we explore to ensure our child's success in the program? Here's Michelle, guys. Michelle, we are so thrilled for her son, Noah, who came into our program with a lack of motivation. Now, the French Prodigy Reading Program, which the French Reading Foundations program is an extension of, is a game changer, was a game changer for them. The thing is, Noah looked forward to the lessons. I always tell parents, whatever your child is enjoying, and if the learning happens to be a part of it, keep it up, pour into that. Because too often we are, feeling like our kids, we see it, our students, perhaps there's a feeling of them feeling forced to do something, and that's already a downward spiral. We want our kids to enjoy the learning process. When something is a little bit more difficult or challenging, even more so important. So we were thrilled to work with Noah, and Mom Michelle noticed that it wasn't just his language skills that improved, but his overall academic confidence. So it's about him being ready for challenges, not just in French, but in the other subjects at school as well. So when we talk about French learning, it isn't just something to keep a narrow view on. It is about teaching our children how to learn and how to view learning and getting a French education. So at this point, you might be wondering, okay, I know what I need to stop doing, but what do I need to do instead? Introducing the French Reading Foundations method. Now, this is the four-step formula to getting French students to reading fluency without frustration, difficulty, or losing confidence. And I'm about to share the same framework that myself and my clients, the families we work with, our students that you just saw, have used to get and jump grade levels when it comes to French reading comprehension. So it's always important for me to share with families. I want to give you deeper insight into this whole reading concept. Okay. Very often we're just moving through life and there's certain whys that we never get to ask. But because my intense focus, hyper focus is on reading comprehension, I want you to get a little bit more insight into why your child may be struggling to read. Okay. So, reading is a complex thing. Very often, we speak a language, so our native language, we learn to read in that native language, but we're not processing how that's taking place. We're just going through the motions, and one day, voila, we can read. But it's complex. So, reading is actually a multidimensional skill. It's not just about recognizing words. There's actually something really complex happening where the ability to hear has to go into translating what words mean, fluency, even the cadence of how words are moving, expression comes into that at a certain stage as well. And of course, comprehension and vocabulary. Now, there's something called the developmental stages of reading. Now, for me, I remember going into junior kindergarten. So I was probably 4 years old when I learned how to read, but that was intentional. I had an aunt and an uncle who, like, we would, over the summer, we had reading classes at home in it step by step, phonics work, learning short sentences, getting the fluency up. I went into JK reading. Now, the typical stages of reading, it actually comes from understanding basic sounds to recognizing words and eventually comprehending complex texts. So, when we share that, just know that your child is at a certain development stage. And I'm going to share, let's dive a little deeper into what that all involves. Now, this is one of my favorite diagrams to show because very often for parents, it's their first time seeing it. So, what you're seeing here is just a visual representation, but it's called the Scarborough rope. Now, Scarborough rope, because that was the name of the person who developed this, that's their last name, but it is an illustration just to show the development of skills over time that leads to skilled reading. Now, this is always very exciting for me to share because it just helps you understand where the gaps may be for your child. So when we look at this rope, right, I right away see two distinguishing pieces. Firstly, language comprehension. So language comprehension are things like background knowledge, vocab, verbal reasoning, literacy knowledge, and those are pieces intertwined in a rope. All right. The second key piece is word recognition. Now, word recognition is when we talk about decoding, sight recognition, when we're looking at syllables, and all these more intricate pieces that exist in language. Now, when we talk about getting to be a skilled reader, what that involves, these two pieces have to be intertwined and well. So when it comes to background knowledge, that may be us as English speakers, let's say, that may be the reason why maybe we can read a knock knock joke in a book. Okay, we can read a book that has some jokes, and based on our knowledge, our concepts, our ability to understand metaphor, perhaps knowing certain vocabulary, the majority of that readership will laugh. because this joke that was witty, that was funny, oh, it was a great play on words. That's also taking us at the same time, knowing what those words were. We have to be able to literally read the words, understand the background knowledge and the different metaphors and all of that, and all the inferences, in order for skilled reading, that fluency and that text comprehension to be present. So when we speak about this, it's meant to really hopefully open your eyes that no one, okay, most people aren't aware that all of these elements are needed for your child to be able to read. Because what I hear sometimes as well is, oh, Elise, my child can read perfectly, but they don't know what they're reading. Sorry to break it to you, but that is not equal to a skilled reader, because that means that the comprehension is lacking. Okay. So we need the language comprehension and the word recognition to be increasingly stronger, woven together. And that is what equals being a skilled reader. So let's talk about exactly what the French Reading Foundations method is. It has 4 steps, as I mentioned: build, master, integrate, and instill. Now, let's focus on build as a starting point. Okay, so build, what exactly does it mean? Build. So, build means, and I want you to just wrap your mind around it. So, most students will memorize words, but don't understand their usage. That's why sometimes students, if they read a book every night, the same one, eventually they'll be able to tell you what the words are because now they've memorized what those words are in the order they are appearing in. And that usually means that they lack context. So being able to see a word, as I mentioned before, that's great. Being able to recognize what it is, amazing. But if you don't have the context, that's now causing miscommunication and confusion. You might throw in a word where it doesn't make sense or use something, and that building phase is not, it's not going to be strong. So it's kind of like having a toolbox. Okay, all these beautiful tools, got state of the art toolbox, but not knowing how to use the tools that are inside. So, why is it important? Why is the build phase important? Well, building a robust vocabulary in French, it actually goes beyond memorizing words. Okay, it's about understanding their usage in context. Without this context, we mentioned there is miscommunication, people might get confused. And learning vocab with context, that's what's equipping your child to really get that confidence, that clear way of expressing themselves. And they're going to have a pretty powerful toolkit, because it's one thing, like I said, to be able to speak, but the writing and the speaking, that's where true fluency is being built. Now, what happens when you start doing this, when you have a strong build in your child's step? Well, when they're learning vocabulary the right way in French, they're getting to more advanced reading comprehension strategies. Okay. They become more enthusiastic learners. They enjoy the process of mastering the language. It's like filling in all the blanks, having all the blanks filled in when you're building. And that's what we want for your children. That's what we want for our students. Them being able to have contextual learning and really blossoming into these bilingual or even trilingual students that they deserve to be. Now, here's why most people won't do it: time constraints. We let time, while it is so important, we let time really limit what potential our students, our children have. Lack of resources. That might be something you're thinking about right now. Or perhaps you're thinking, you know what, I want something a little faster and there won't be immediate results. So that's why I'm not going to be a part of it. Let's talk about master. Now, master, what does it actually mean? So most students skip foundational phonics. I've seen it year over year that phonics, or I call it the lack thereof for phonics, it leads to mispronunciations. And French is that language where mispronunciation can 100% derail the meaning. Okay. This causes misunderstandings, and it's kind of like trying to build a house on a really shaky foundation. So I always say to our students, there is there is a sound to French, there's a feeling to it. And I always ask, we teach the whole idea of respecting and honoring the sounds in French. There's a lazy way to approach it. Then there is a way where you stand up and you flow with the sounds, and it's some of it's physical. Okay, some of it's physical. You have to even move your mouth a certain way, but we just want to make sure that our students are excited and honoring the sounds of the French language because it's beautiful. Why is it so important? Well, what we really need to build a strong foundation in French is to start with the basics. And the basics very often involve the sounds. The sounds are what make up the words. The words are what make up sentences, and sentences larger texts. Now, this helps because it leads to an accurate pronunciation and better understanding. So, why exactly is this important? Well, it's really important because starting with the basics and building up is where true solid foundation is taking place. In French, when it comes to basics, I'm speaking about the sounds of the language, the pieces that make up words, perfecting the sounds, the letter combinations that build up words. Words ultimately are placed in sentences, sentences into larger texts. So having an accurate pronunciation is something where, as you do it, as you build it, it's becoming more enjoyable to read. It's less taxing, less stressful to read because when you can see a sound and you recognize it, that's going to give you some confidence, some inner boost, if you will, to keep going. And just like a sturdy house, we want to make sure our children have a really solid foundation in the French language. Now, what happens when you start doing this? So, this stage in our process, it's very much designed to consolidate and deepen the understanding. So, I treat our sounds learning like Lego. I Most of our kids like Lego, right? And I share, a Lego piece on its own, it's not that valuable. Okay. A Lego piece on its own is like the sounds of the language. But a Lego piece is put together with other Lego pieces to build a structure, to design something beautiful. And without each piece being accurately placed somewhere or being placed in a certain direction, there is no foundation. Okay. So we're teaching the importance of one sound, being able to build out into more complex words and pronunciations. And this is going to be applicable to different nuances that are part of language. Now, it's very rewarding because our children, I've felt this feeling before when they can get a sound right, or they now have the memory of what a sound makes, and they see that sound in a new word and can still pronounce a word, even though you don't know the meaning yet, but you can pronounce the word as a first step, then seek out the meaning. That is a huge confidence boost and a reason for them to want to keep going and want to keep trying. So here's why most people aren't going to do it. There's a perceived difficulty with this French language thing. Okay, there's a bunch of accents going everywhere, different letter combinations. You add an extra letter, the whole pronunciation gets changed. And quite frankly, it's frustrating, right? And you're like, too difficult. Okay. And that you might say to your child too, oh, this is too hard. Time and commitment, it's not going to be overnight. We practice sounds because they need practice. Sounds are something, especially in French, as I said, you got to train even your mouth muscles how to move. Very often, it's not natural, some of the sounds to our native language. For me, it's English, right? So, training your mouth how to move, very important. And lack of immediate results. A lot of overnight desires to get the French, or maybe your child's gotten to a certain grade and you're like, well, of course you should be knowing this by now. It's not happening immediately. So perhaps you don't want to do it. So this step is step 3. And integrate is all about teaching our children how to listen. Now, some parents and I always have a laugh when we discuss this because teaching your child how to listen is probably a newer concept. Okay. When we were growing up, there wasn't really a lesson. There wasn't even a formality. You went to school, you went to whatever other sessions you had, and your job was to listen. Like it wasn't an option. But Today, we have to be honest, our kids are so distracted. And when it comes to listening, when it comes to French language listening, it's important that our students develop a certain level of focus that will lead to attention. So we're not just asking them to listen as a form of discipline, okay, or as a form of, uh, okay, that's you're in a school structure, that's what you have to do. It's more so listening with the intention of retaining. I want you to remember what's going on. So when this happens, okay, our kids aren't aware of how to listen in French, they miss the natural rhythm and tone of the language. French has a movement to it, okay? And if they don't have the ability to speak French, it's like they've missed the beat, okay? That's usually how a native speaker can distinguish how someone is kind of nailing the French language is by how they flow through it, how they move through it. Okay. Now, why is this important? So, it's really important to incorporate active listening exercises because this is what's preparing them for a real world French experience. It's one thing to be able to speak French to your teacher and speak French to your classmates, but there's a big world and there's a big world where French is happening. And it's important that you're ready for it, that your child is prepared for it. And them having that exposure to the different sounds of the language on an ongoing basis prepares them for that rhythm of spoken French, no matter where they are, so they can finally dance to the rhythm of the music. Okay. And what happens when you start doing this? Well, what your child really does is they start to embrace mistakes as a learning opportunity. So when you're listening, there isn't that perfection that we're seeking. It's more the repetition, right? So if you repeat after someone and you don't get it right the first time, it's okay. Try it again, right? We're moving forward, knowing that the mistakes being made along the way, it's a learning opportunity. Okay. And it's also a stepping stone to mastery. So there isn't this overnight magic pill in French learning. It's your stepping stone to mastery. So perhaps one school year you work on perfecting the nasal sounds in French. Okay, that's a big one. Perhaps now you want to make sure your child is able to very easily recognize if an accent is aigu going to the right or an accent is grave going backwards left, that they know those sounds and recognize them easily. Okay, so everyone has different milestones at different times, but the point is building the confidence to speak in French piece by piece. Now, here's why most people won't do it: comfort zone. It's sometimes not comfortable. Sometimes learning your sound, training your mouth, training your muscles in your mouth to perfect a sound, it's not comfortable. It's also a piece of the language that very often the value of it is underestimated. Sometimes we do get students who are reading fluently, but like the pronunciation needs work. I'm going to be honest, guys. And there's a reason why I can travel around the world. And even 2 summers ago, I was in Paris and taking a cab somewhere, okay? Speaking to the driver in French, the point that he had to ask me, where did you learn your French? And I told him like my story, and he was so impressed because obviously there is a Parisian French, so that accent will differ. And I want you guys just to honor French is all over the world. So accents aren't usually a deterrent. But what someone who is a native speaker understands is wow, someone has really learned French in a beautiful way that is elegant, sounds great, right? I can tell they're not from Paris, but where are you from? Right? So that connecting piece, that would be missing for your child if you're underestimating the value of sound, if you're staying within a comfort zone. Now let's talk about instill, the fourth step, instill. So what does instill mean? Instill is a lot about the confidence, solely about the confidence. It's the reason why most students will avoid speaking, and that's due to the fear of mistakes. Okay. It also means that they don't practice in real life scenarios. If you don't have this instill step, you're not going to be practicing. And practice is what makes permanent. So if you're not practicing, you're lacking the practical step of actually implementing, using what you're being taught. So it's like our kids learning to swim, but never jumping into the pool. is that in vain? We're not actually practicing. So why is it important? So it's really important because once again, the mistakes element is a part of the level of mastery. So when you are learning to swim, you are going to eventually have to dive into a pool. Okay, you're gonna have to dive into a pool because that's what you've been practicing, and that's how you know you're becoming a strong swimmer. Okay, when you're starting to swim more effortlessly, and that's really important. So, what does this all mean? Okay, when you are lacking this skill, when you're lacking confidence, there's a lack of fundamental skills that is being developed. Number one, if you're not expressing it or if you're keeping what you think you know to yourself, there's going to be increased frustration and anxiety. You're not sure. To be unsure is such a frustrating place. And of course, you're going to have a very difficult time, your child at school with their evaluations, because they're not going to be able to develop the fluency and the competence that is required for their grade level. So, what's going to happen when you start doing this? When you have your child using that instill step? Well, they're going to have confidence in the language fundamentals. And as I shared before, guys, the foundation is everything. It is everything. Every school year it does get more complex, but if from the onset you are building a strong foundation, you're prepared for the complexities. You wouldn't want to go through the rest of your schooling knowing everything. You don't want your child to not go to school and learn, right? So, of course, there's something challenging coming in every grade. But if you have a strong foundation, those challenges don't scare you. You welcome them. Your child will welcome those challenges. They'll also have a positive attitude towards learning French. That's important. You want your child to be happy. You want your child to go to school and want to be in the French program and feel even proud to be a part of the French learning community. And of course, accelerated learning. When your child can have confidence, that learning, that hunger to learn, it is there. So here's what we've learned so far. I hope you guys are taking notes. So we have learned the top 3 mistakes French immersion students make. We've also learned what to do instead with the French Reading Foundations method. And finally, we've learned why you don't need French-speaking parents to be successful in French immersion. So you're here today because, and be honest, nod with me, okay? You want your child to read fluently and understand what they're reading. Huge. Don't just read to understand without giving up hours more of study time and lose confidence. You also want a simple solution to help your child master their French reading and be more confident. Is that right? I know you felt like you want to take them out of French immersion before and you're ready to make a change, which is probably why you've stuck with me in this training so far. Well, good news, guys. Today is the day. Nothing I've shared with you today is theory or ideas. Okay? These are all things, all of the things that myself, my students, our clients have done to achieve French reading comprehension mastery. They didn't have any advantages or special skills. They have present day a system that works. And if they can do this, you can, your child can too. That's why you have 2 options today. Option number 1, either you continue to experiment with your child's French education, or option number 2, fast track your results with the French Reading Foundations program. Introducing the French Reading Foundations program, a roadmap to fluency. Now, this is the step-by-step reading comprehension course tailored to those in French immersion. Okay, and it's tailored to help them thrive in the language in as little as 8 weeks. Let's get into it. Let's get into what you get. So you get the French Reading Foundations course, the entire curriculum. This is valued at $1,299. This is an incredible community because as a parent of a child in French immersion, you get access to our Parents Hub. It is a tight-knit community for parents of French learners. It is very active, lots of communications, lots of chats, and it's $6.99 value. Okay. You also are getting Fun Friday. So this is a live French games class every Friday that takes place. You'll get more details if you do enroll in our program, but it's important for me that if our kids are in a French program, that they're enjoying the process. And when we think of fun, we think of French. Okay, French games every Friday. And then finally, there is a bonus. There's sideline supports, a special playbook, a really detailed resource guide centered around you being able to help your child in French, depending on what area they're struggling with. So there's different sections based on where your child is in their learning journey, different things you can experiment and try out, and that's valued at $249. So it's a total value, friends, of $2,567 for all of these elements I've just mentioned. So here's what you're going to achieve with the French Reading Foundations course, Enhanced Reading Skills. Bottom line, guys, I spoke about the importance of literacy. I'll also share that our community, our entire population is in a literacy crisis. This is not a child thing, it's an adult thing. But guess what? These adults were once children. So it's important for me just to share that it's a passion of mine. Literacy is something we focus on. For us, it's the French literacy. Okay, so students are going to improve significantly through our program and are going to have the ability to read and comprehend French. We're going to do all the decoding, how to do that, understanding new vocabulary, and really grasp a lot of the key grammatical structures because that's essential for fluent reading. Okay, they're also going to have stronger comprehension abilities. So through various types of exercises and materials, our students develop stronger comprehension skills. They're going to learn to infer meaning, okay? How to approach texts, understand context, analyze text, and really develop those critical skills that's going to ensure their academic success. They're also going to have confidence in language use. As you know, confidence, reoccurring theme in the session, but that's because you need the confidence to become overall better in French. You have to practice. You have to participate. You have to try new things, make a mistake, not be afraid to raise your hand. Okay. And that's going to include confidence with their speaking, their writing, and their listening. Because as you know, nothing goes hand in hand. Everything goes hand in hand in French. Nothing is by itself. Okay. So you're going to learn step one, build. So building is about the basics. We want the strong foundational skills. This is giving them the linguistic competence to be advanced communicators and readers in French. Master, step two of this program is they're going to be really concerned with the fine print. We want our kids, like I said, to master the fine print of the language. That is where you're learning advanced language structures, different expressions, perhaps some cultural nuances, and really just getting our kids to get a natural feel for language. That proficiency is really what's going to give them the academic success in their French learning journey. Step three, integrate. So integrate, we want to make sure your students, your children are making sure the language skills it's varied, okay? We want them to boost their confidence, but also be prepared and have an ear towards language, giving them the power to interact in French-speaking environments with ease. And finally, instill the confidence, the confidence, the confidence. It's about building a strong confidence in your child. This stage is crucial, okay? We want to set up our kids, our students for advanced learning in French. And when they feel secure, when they feel prepared, that is when the journey becomes less brutal, less rigorous for your children. So who does this program actually work for? Okay, let's be clear. This French language program is for young learners, okay, enrolled in French schools, but are at the beginning stages of their language education. Now, all around the globe, people start learning French at different ages, okay? So this is for those who are in the beginning stages, probably the first 3 years. This will be very effective for your child. And the focus of the program is on interactive yet supportive French learning. Okay, we want you to have a strong footing to succeed. We want your children to succeed, bottom line. And finally, it's providing our students with an environment where the confidence is being built. Okay, and because it's meant for French speaking children who French is more than likely a second language, we want to make sure it's effective for them. Who is this program not for? So it is not for students who already possess a advanced skills in French, okay? It could be if you wanted a bit of a review, but it literally is for those who are in more the beginning phases of their French learning journey. And this may also not be a best fit for students who are outside of a French school setting. So there are different levels in French learning, but if your child is enrolled in a English or a different language that's not French, primarily focused school, then this foundational French training is not going to be applicable or as relevant for them. So the number one reason why French students can't read fluently, it's because there is insufficient language foundation. Now, students in French immersion without strong foundational knowledge of the French language may struggle with reading comprehension. We see it every day. This is going to cause a challenge in decoding words, understanding sentence structure, grasping the meaning of text, especially if their initial exposure to French vocabulary and grammar was limited. So it is a huge crisis, it's a huge problem, but we know your child's going to be able to get rid of frustration reading and not understanding. The insecurity of speaking French, that's going to be dropped. And the low confidence and motivation, you can say goodbye to that if they enroll in our program. Now, I didn't know previously how exactly to master the foundations of French learning. Obviously, I come from a non-French speaking home, so there was a little bit of an uphill climb growing up. And I wasn't able to always find resources to help me do so. So I had to create a comprehensive program that was going to be useful for helping French students, not just to improve their reading, but to do it without getting lost, getting overwhelmed, or feeling an extreme struggle going through it. Now, the number one reason why people don't get started. Many parents worry that adding a new course to their child's schedule might overwhelm them, especially if they're already involved in multiple activities and schoolwork. They fear their child may get a bit burnt out or not have any time to relax and to play. You might also be thinking, what's so different about this program? And will the course methodology and content truly benefit my child and improve their French language skills? Let's take a
The
listen.
main goal is just for him to be comfortable with the language,
Yes.
because that was the one of the main goals at the onset of the program, because you switched into French immersion, and since he's going to be having some of his lectures in that language, so he needs to understand the language well, so then he's able to grasp whatever is being taught in the language, right? So that's when the communication is really, really key. And I think he's more confident, more comfortable with it compared to his level before, and also from some of his grades in school. Yeah, initially it was like it was not too good, but now even after his some of his assessments and comes back home, like he's so proud of himself, like, oh my gosh, mommy, look at what I got, um, so we're making progress. I'm happy.
So that is one of our students, guys, whose child went through our program, and they are in a French speaking province. So they are from Quebec here in Canada. And they moved to that country quite late. Her son was in grade 4 and was placed in a full French school. So imagine the challenge of being in an English only system, then full French, grade 4. So it was almost like a Mayday moment. SOS Elise, please, our child needs some support. And having gone through our program, mom was so happy because with the focus on the foundations, while his other classmates had been in French the majority of their lives or all of their schooling lives, he was able to catch up by having a strong footing. He was prepared for the other complexities of living in a French province, and he was better off for it. So you might still be thinking, my child is still young. They have time to catch up. That could not be further from the truth. So here's what I know to be true, guys. Starting early allows your child to build a strong foundation in the language. That's going to make any learning in the future easier and more intuitive. It's going to come more naturally. Okay. Younger children, okay. And like I said, young in the journey. So maybe you started French later, or when you're just getting this information later. But younger children, they're at a really critical period for language acquisition. Their brains are still being molded, so they are more receptive to learning the new language. And this prevents the accumulation of gaps in knowledge. So here's a reminder of what you're getting in our program. You are getting the French Reading Foundations curriculum, valued at $12.99. The Parents Hub, which is an incredible community. This is the home base for parents of French learners at a $6.99 value. You're also going to be getting access. Your child is going to get access to our weekly French games class every Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern time. Okay, you'll get more details on that when you join live games class. And then finally, a bonus. It's a playbook for parents valued at $249. So total value of our French Reading Foundations program, $2,567. So imagine if all I did was charge you $2,567 to learn the exact steps to French Reading Foundations, allowing your child to be fluent and confident in French from that system. Would you be willing to pay this amount? What if all of this was a complete roadmap and guidance on how to master the foundations of French reading? Would it be at least worth $1,283.50? Absolutely. So I had two choices. I had the choice of making it cheap, or I had the choice of making it valuable. So the total value, as I mentioned, is $2,567. The fair value is $1,283.50. Now, the total value, I wanted to make sure this was accessible for everyone. So the fair value being $1,283.50, I actually have been able to give a pricing for this program that is all encompassing and holistic. The current price is $597 for all of the things I mentioned. But wait, because you stuck with me, because you decided to hang out with me, I wanted to offer, because my bottom line is for our students who are in French programs to have access. Okay. I wanted to give you a limited time only special offer today, because our students in French, as I said earlier, are in a literacy crisis. Now, this is a limited time special for 7 days only. Okay. So for the next 7 days, I have a special offer, and the pricing of this program is going to be $497 when you pay in full. Okay, it's a one-time installment. Now, because I understand that flexibility is a part of what makes certain things accessible for families, you can either pay $497 in a one-time installment, or we have a special flexible payment plan where it would be 3 monthly installments of $229 each month. So this is really important to mention, because it is going to be a time where this offer is not going to be available. It's only for the next 7 days. That $497 in one installment, or $229 for 3 months, that's billed for 3 months, is going to be an access point for you to get into this program. Now, it's important to secure your spot today to gain access, to French Reading Foundations when it releases on the date below, okay? And you're going to click the button to join in. So you've got two choices. Don't buy it now and continue struggling to get your child the right help to get to the mastery of reading comprehension on your own. Choice number one. Choice number two, invest in this course today and get the expertise that you know you need to get your child to thrive in French ASAP. The choice is yours. I'm here to help if you have any questions or concerns, but I do encourage you to take action and join the French Reading Foundations program today by clicking the button below. Here's a reminder of what you get. So you're getting all of these pieces. This is the curriculum. It's the Parents Hub, where a lot of fun things happen. There are like live Q&As and master classes and free resources, all that good stuff. You're going to get Fun Fridays. We want your children to enjoy the French journey every Friday. Games class. We want them there. It's exciting. It's actually quite a hoot, the games class every Friday. And of course, a bonus of the French sideline support. Okay, it's for parents of French learners, the playbook. It's really valuable. Okay, $249. And the total value of the whole programming is $2,567. As I mentioned, today there's a very special offer. So today, if you pay in full, it is $497, or there's a flexible payment plan of $229 a month for 3 months. So the real question is it worth gambling years of your child's life not moving forward? Even if this program only does half of what I've claimed to do today, it will pay for itself. So here's the real question. Is it worth gambling years of your child's life not moving forward? Even if this program only does half of what I've claimed today, it will pay for itself as soon as your child is reading versus struggling right now to keep up in class. And if this wasn't amazing enough already, I had to go through hours of frustrated French students, guys. I could tell you a million stories just to get to the point where I could confidently share step-by-step process for French students to excel in the language, and doing it from a lens I know is going to stick, given that I sat in the seat they're sitting today. So for the next 7 days only, I want you guys to remember, this is a special offer, $497 one-time installment, okay? Or $229 3 monthly installments can be billed for 3 months, $229 a month. It's important you secure your spot today because it's only for 7 days. This is one of those things where after 7 days, it is indeed no longer the offer. It's going to go back up in price. So tell me, what is it that's holding you back? I don't have time to enroll my child in more programs. Is that what's going through your mind? Excellent.
Yes.
How have you observed her overall for the last 12 weeks?
Yes, well, I saw a lot of improvement. I can tell you from the difference from the year before going to grade one. That was my concern, that during the summer I don't speak French. You know, if you don't practice the language, you lose it. So that was my concern, and I'm very pleased. I'm glad that she went through this program, because I was so scared that, she was going to go to grade 3 and she was going to be lost.
But yes, definitely, Naya, and that's something I enjoy sharing with you parents, because Naya, that specific student you just saw, her schedule was jam-packed, okay? She did figure skating. She had an extra reading club for English that she was in on top of this program. But what we can see here is what we make time for, what we invest in and put our focus on, the results will follow. So kudos to the parents who, yes, while our kids are juggling so much, that if French learning and French language acquisition is your priority, that's where the focus area is happening. Remember, your child, it's not a crazy amount of time. It's just 1 hour a week, okay? Your child can spend more, but just 1 hour a week is required working on the French Reading Foundations course to build fluency. and to master the core learning techniques of the language. Isn't that incredible? Just 1 hour a week. Perhaps you're saying, man, I'm hesitant to enroll my child in the French course because, once again, I don't speak the language myself, and I worry that I won't be able to support their learning. Here are some parents who also felt like you, but were so happy they took a risk and took a chance. This was a lot of students. Sometimes it is people's first time doing virtual learning, having such an incredible experience doing that and the results showing. The students who weren't comfortable speaking, getting the confidence through a program, through being able to connect to something that's helping them feel better about trying, deeper comprehension, having a child who was not doing the basics, went from basics to French writing, right? French speaking more confidently. And having a chance, I believe, to have different resources and different lens of French language learning, these parents have indeed found success. So remember, parents, it is our goal that you feel comfortable on the French learning journey with your child. I always say to parents, it's not your job to be the teacher. It is your job to be the partner on this experience. So hold hands. It's like we're all three of us linked. Elise, the French tutor, okay? Parent and child, let's walk this thing out together. And we also offer resources and support for parents, including guides, workshops, Q&A sessions with instructors. And that's going to give you more confidence as well. I think when you have more confidence, that translates to your child. It gives you more empowerment to support them on their journey, regardless of your own language skills. And these features are very accessible in our programming. And we know that when a parent feels empowered, that positively enhances your child's proficiency in the language as well. Thinking this, I worry that the program relies too heavily on technology, and you fear that too much screen time is going to be detrimental to your child's overall development and well-being. Popular one.
I would say over the 12 weeks, I can see that his reading has improved, and even trying to translate it for me, because usually we bring up Google Translator and go word for word, but he would start to do it by himself and at least try to pick out what overall the idea is, which is really nice, because before he didn't, he wasn't very enthusiastic about that. I think what really sticks out the most too is his enthusiasm about French. Like I expressed to you when we first had our meeting, I was still unsure, should we keep him in French immersion or not? Is this gonna hold him back with the other subjects? And it's extra work for him, for me, but I could see like he really looked forward to every Monday and Wednesday. I was just like, okay, you got online with Miss Vanier, Miss Elise, and he's like, okay, no problem. And I'm like, wow, that is different, because he has online for a couple other things, and the same enthusiasm is just not there. So I really like that, and I think I also appreciate the fact that it was a group, but it wasn't a big group, it's a small group. Because I think that peer connection really made a difference for him. He's like, oh, I have this friend now. And he would name a couple of friends. I'm like, oh, okay, that's good. We have this in common, we talk about this. And so that was really nice to hear that he had that social connection with other students, whether, I don't know what their ages were, but he felt so comfortable in the class. Mm-hmm. And I would say, like, even with watching some French shows or YouTube videos, again, it wasn't like it's a chore. It's like, okay, we're gonna watch this video, and he was totally on board with watching it and like saying those words to his sister. And his sister's 3, and she's just a parrot, right? So she's just copying what he's saying, and even my 2-year-old, he's trying to say a word here and there. So it was kind of nice to see that not only does he find it fun, but he wants to share it with his younger sibling, which was awesome for a mom to see. And they're not fighting every single second. As the semester went on, he still had that exercise in his classes at school, but he would try to do the sentences himself, and they're getting better. They're not just 3 words. It's like a couple of descriptors. It's a fuller sentence. So I feel like he's building confidence in that area too. And so I would say he's definitely benefited for sure. And as a mom watching him, I am more confident to keep him in the French immersion program. I was doubtful before because of COVID and keeping him home for a year, and he didn't have grade 1 French anything. So I was really nervous about it, but now I feel way more comfortable.
And I share the story of Grace Lee because her son, he was in our program and he's probably one of the busiest kids I've ever met. And that's a fact, okay? He has a lot of acting, a lot of modeling, is a star athlete and a student. Okay, he's just in grade 3 right now. And it was important for mom. She prioritized French learning because French immersion was important for her. But with everything he had going on, she needed something that worked within his schedule. So him being able to access our materials from wherever he was a priority, and it actually being effective and working positively to his schooling that he was doing was also a huge win for the family. So the program is designed, guys, to have a holistic approach, okay? These are children that we're teaching and working with, and our digital platforms, it's meant to be interactive. I was chatting with a parent this week, and she was a little bit hesitant about the whole online learning thing. And I said, hey, when I was in university like 20 years ago, I had an online course, not by choice. That was just the option. The option was online for one of my courses. And it's something really interesting because I feel like we're living in a digital literacy age. It's an age where either you need to be really strong in the digital world for any future in anything, or you are going to get left behind. So it's not to say that our kids should be on devices all day, but I do believe a good and a strong knowledge and using that screen time or that online time for things that are developmental in a positive way, there's, for me, no harm in that. Okay. The balance, of course, is that the technology that's going to translate into real life. So they're taking a course, but of course, that is going to be practice and exercise in real life environment. And that's the beauty of it. Average is good. I say this, average is good, but being exceptional is even better. I have this quote I always say, why be average when you were created to be exceptional? And remember, you don't need to spend years learning the ins and outs of French second language learning. Your kids are at a really crucial time right now. And I'm giving you the opportunity to get started today with our French Reading Foundations program and get your child to be a strong reader in no time. And you can join me. You can join me right now with your first payment of just $229. So I am here for all of your questions. I'm here for all of your questions, and I've got the answers. Don't forget that today's special offer, $497, okay? $497 one-time installment or $229. If you are looking to do an installment plan for 3 months, $229 a month. You can reach me at Elise at thefrenchtutor.ca. Go ahead, send me a message if you've got more questions. And I also have that bonus I promised you. I keep my promises. So if you go to www.readinfrench.ca/the end, there's something special for you. Make a note of it. Readinfrench.ca/the end. And there's something waiting for you to download. All right. So let's talk about some FAQs. All right. Some FAQs. So will this complement what your child is doing at school? You'll be happy to know, as I said, this is year 17, that we are working with students in French language learning. Okay, I went through the program myself. So absolutely. We have every single curriculum you can imagine, meaning every province, curriculum, and we know what the different milestones per grade level are. Okay. We have designed a unique curriculum that's aligned very closely with French immersion programs, but it's also meant to be a strong supplement to school learning. So, of course, school's going to have a broader view, a broader spectrum of subjects they're working on. So we are focused specifically on the French reading comprehension, which we know because their other subjects are in French. You gotta be strong in that area for the other subjects to come along and join in that strength. Okay. Another popular question is, how is this different from other tutoring options out there? Well, I'll just say our brain does not operate anywhere that's traditional. Okay. We're living in a world right now where we've got to meet our students where they are. This is not the generation I grew up in. Okay, this is a brand new generation, and our curriculum reflects that. It reflects a way of learning that is interesting. It is intentionally fun. Okay, it's intentionally fun because our kids will retain what they're enjoying, what they're engaged with. It's designed for French immersion students, and it actually offers multiple forms of support. So very often we have our kids enrolled in, let's say, a French tutor, a French program, but we're a little bit blind to what's happening. We want our parents to be informed. We want our parents even to be learning something along the way. Be able to have a safe space to ask certain questions, to have a question that maybe you want to challenge in your child's schooling. And we are the safe place to do that. So there's a parents community and there's that openness. You could even bring different ideas and different just discussion topics and just be with like-minded parents who are looking to give their child the best that the education system has to offer. So your time is right now, guys. Your time is right now. Think about it. You could be the parent of a confident bilingual child. If you've ever dreamed of your child mastering the French foundations, this is the time, okay? This is me in Paris just 2 summers ago. And having the time of my life, French-speaking country, imagine, born in Trinidad, grew up in Toronto, Canada, now teaching globally students in the French language. What a journey, right? What a journey. And I want that for your kids. I want your kids to have their own story. I want them to know French doesn't look like one thing or act like one thing, and that they can be a true reflection of someone who has this added skill, this added language under their belt, and the journey and the culture behind that as well. Okay. So if you've ever dreamed of your child being in this position, I want you to know this is the time. Okay. And if you join the French Reading Foundations program today, you're going to get all the tools, strategies, support needed for your child to thrive in French. So take action now. Join the French Reading Foundations program and get access when it releases, just by clicking the link below. I am so looking forward to working with all of your children, seeing them thrive and become these incredibly confident bilingual children, and you as parents to just take the weight off, okay? Get that guilt away. Get that confusion of if you made the right decision, because I do believe every child has the potential, once given things in bite-sized pieces that they can digest, that they're able to really get to these French language superstars that they deserve to be. Hope to see you inside, guys. Thanks for joining. I look forward to seeing you there.